Welcome to Quintessential Comics. I'm your host, Alice Quinn.
And I'm your co-host, Matt Garcia.
And we have a lovely episode lined up for you today. We got in the studio Chester Brown. What? Yeah. Talking about all things comics. It's going to be awesome, yo. Also, in other news, I guest starred on Unboxing Wednesdays, another show filmed out of Brampton, Ontario. So because I traveled all that way, you can travel all the way to another YouTube video after you're done this one and watch it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Subtle. It was very subtle.
I'm never, ever subtle. But we got a great episode, man. Episode 20.
Yeah.
What? And next week we got our season finale, so you should come in and party with us during that. But yeah, enjoy the show. So here we are on the set of Quintessential Comics with comics legend Chester Brown. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Alice.
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Cool. I've had the great pleasure of reading many of your books, and I really enjoyed them. And that's why I asked you here today, because I find your talents unique, and I really wanted to talk to you about it.
Thank you. You haven't read everything, though?
No.
I know Ed the Happy Clown has been out of print for a while, and maybe the Playboy too, so yeah.
It's also like the library was on strike just when I was like trying to like research stuff, so
right.
I actually got my friend Brian to lend me Louis Real, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you've done a lot throughout the years, and you've had an interesting journey throughout the industry. You started with Ed the Clown, which is more of a surreal book, and you moved through to you went to historical, and you went with Louis Real, and then you went Autobio, and you went back to Autobio after. Mm-hmm. What is it about autobiographical storytelling that really drew you in and kept you there?
It was seeing other cartoonists work in autobiographical mode, particularly my friend Joe Matt. And he wasn't my friend, when I first started reading his work. I don't know if you've read Joe's stuff. He did a comic book series called Peep Show. And he had then his first graphic novel, I think, was called Peep Show, and he's had subsequent graphic novels since then, particularly The Poor Bastard and what's his latest one, Spent. And yeah, his stuff was, when I first read his stuff, it was such a revelation, because he exposed himself to the world in a way that seemed, other people had done autobiographical comics before Joe, but he was just so revealing, and he was willing to show himself in such a negative light and reveal all his flaws, and it was riveting stuff. So yeah, he made the work seem so compelling that I was like, I gotta try that.
Yeah, it inspired you.
Yeah. I don't think I started doing autobiographical stuff myself until after Joe and I had actually become friends. I'm trying to think. Yeah, probably. And another cartoonist who really inspired me was Julie Doucet. I don't know if you've seen her stuff, but no, she was... I had to write it down. I actually can't remember. You're writing it Doucet, and I can't remember, even though I've met her and I asked her this question, I can't remember whether it's Doucet or Doucet, but
she'll
I'm
understand.
Sorry, Julie,
she'll understand.
For forgetting. But her stuff was very, it was a bit more whimsical than Joe's, and usually not as grounded in reality, although she also did very realistic autobiographical stuff too. But she showed how you could combine real life stuff with kind of a fantasy-ish take on things. and her stuff was really inspirational too. And really it was the combination of those two cartoonists that got me wanting to do.
So after you decided to take the plunge and you're like, I'm going to try this Autobio thing out, what did you find was like the hardest part? Because I feel like, drawing yourself over and over, you would get a little self-conscious, or, the parts of the story that are a little more revealing of your, negative qualities you might be hesitant to share.
It really didn't seem that difficult for me. The strip that probably was, or where I first really started revealing stuff about myself, would have been the Playboy, where I showed my teenage self, being really interested in pornography and that sort of thing. It was the first strip where I'd drawn myself in the past, where I, particularly in the hometown where I'd lived, and it was just so thrilling drawing my hometown, which I hadn't lived in for many years. It was kind of like traveling back in time. So I wasn't even thinking about, I'm showing myself negatively here or whatever. It was just fun revisiting that time in my life.
And also, you're sitting in your studio drawing by yourself, so it doesn't feel like it's revealing until people start talking to you about it.
Precisely. There aren't people around me looking over my shoulder as I'm drawing. So, it really didn't bring up any kind of self-conscious issues. And then once you're showing people, it's the same kind of anxiety that comes along with showing your work whenever you're showing a finished piece to friends or whatever. I don't think the fact that it was autobiographical changed that kind of anxiety. Like, is it good? Did it work out?
Yeah, it's the same sort of
anything?
like, this is my work. Please like it.
Exactly.
Cool. So I've noticed in a lot of your books, you've got very large, lengthy afterwards, whether it be appendixes or bibliographies or additional notes.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think it's so important to include these additional notes in the finished product?
I didn't at the beginning. Well, I always, when I was a teenager, I used to love Marvel and DC comics. And, they would have these letters pages. And so I always liked that part of it. I would read through the comic part of the comic book, the story. And then when I got to the end of that, there was still something more to the reading experience, which was reading the prose letters. And just that kind of 1-2 thing, that little additional thing that you got at the end. When I did my series Yummy Fur, that's why I always liked having a letter section in there. And with books, it's like you can't have a letter section, but you can have something that's kind of similar.
So it's a little bit of bonus material.
That's the way I see it. Just it's kind of like the director's commentary in a DVD or whatever. Just like bonus stuff.
I'm going to bring this back a bit to earlier on in this conversation where you talked about working with Joe Matt, and a lot in your comics I can see that you worked with Joe Matt and Seth and collaborated and drew inspiration from them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Now and today you guys live in different cities, and it doesn't seem like you guys collaborate as much. How was that?
Well, we never really... It depends on what you mean by collaborate. I mean, often when we would get together, we would do these jam comics together, which wasn't like serious work, and it was just kind of goofing around, having fun.
But at the same time, when you're goofing around having fun, you're drawing inspiration and you would share your finished works with your friends first to see how they felt about it. And getting that sort of feedback from your friends would, affect how you work and what would you do with it.
Yeah, I certainly miss having those guys around. Although I still see Seth fairly often. I mean, he doesn't live that far away. He's in Guelph, and he's
not a big deal.
He comes into Toronto fairly regularly. But yeah, I almost never get to see Joe. Although I talk to him pretty regularly. Although I'm the one who has to call him because he's too cheap to call long distance, and I don't have a computer, so we can't call on Skype or whatever. But anyways, so I talk to Joe regularly, but yeah, it is different not getting together as often as we used to. But I still have cartooning friends here. They're it's just this separate set of
life moves and things change. But
I was telling you earlier that you should check out Nick Mandag and Jason Kiefer. Because they're two of my close cartooning friends here in Toronto. And I also hang out with this guy, Dave Lapp. I don't know if you know
Dave Lapp's really cool.
Yeah, Dave Lapp is amazing.
He's a funny guy.
Yeah. So yeah, I hang out with those guys, and sometimes Ethan Riley if he's in town. He used to live in Toronto. Do you know Ethan Riley who does Pope Hats? Yeah. He used to live here in Toronto, but recently he just moved to Montreal. So, but yeah, so I'm able to get inspiration these days from those guys.
You just draw inspiration from elsewhere, which is awesome. You've structured your comics in various different ways, and you've settled on sort of a 6-panel per page layout. Why do you have chosen to stay this way with both these books and other of your works?
I used to, as I mentioned earlier, I read Marvel and DC comics when I was a teenager, and they would have these weird layouts with panels that were all kinds of kooky different sizes,
and like Superman busting out of a panel.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's when I was a teenager, that's the way I drew comics. I didn't have this set grid that every, where every panel had to be exactly the same size. And then when I was in my early 20s, I read Little Orphan Annie by Harold Gray, and he made every panel exactly the same size, and the story was completely riveting. Like I had thought earlier that you needed to vary panel size to keep your readers interested, but seeing Gray have every panel exactly the same size, I realized that makes no difference to the reader. As long as it's a good story, that's what people are interested in. And for the way I work, at least the way I've worked just about my whole adult life, I like drawing each panel separately. And so it's easier assembling everything afterwards if every panel is the same size. And that way, if a panel didn't work, you can take it out and replace it with a different panel that's exactly the same size, or just shift panels around. It makes editing a book very easy.
I just have this picture in my mind of your studio with all these different jigsaw pieces of comic panels.
It's kind of like that sometimes, yeah.
I also feel like with, similarity to panel size, that the way a comic is drawn is also something that can carry the story really well. If you have a more simplistic, cartoonistic style that the people who are reading can easily relate to, then the story carries better and it's easier for people to get into it, rather than if you have these really detailed characters and they just get lost in the art.
I don't want to say that one way is better than another. Really, my art style grew out of what I like looking at. I can certainly appreciate artists who have a much more realistic style and put a lot of detail in.
It's just a different type of making comics.
Yeah, really, my favorite. I've already mentioned him. My favorite artist of all time is Harold Gray, and I'm trying as much as possible, usually, to draw like him. Actually, I wasn't really for paying for it, but it's still kind of the template in my mind of how a comic should look, and I never strayed that far from Harold Gray's style, or I'm not trying to stray too far from Harold Gray's style. So, to me, his style is absolute perfection. I just wish I could draw like he did.
I really like your style. I think it's almost as good or better.
Yes, a few people have said to me they think I'm better than Harold Gray, but they were Philistines.
So now that you're doing with paying for it, and maybe you didn't release them sequentially. You didn't release issues. You just released the whole book as one piece.
Yeah, I didn't serialize it beforehand.
So are you working on something now, and when are we going to be able to see it? Because if it's not serialized, obviously it's going to take more time.
Yeah, I haven't started on my next book yet. In fact, I'm not totally sure what my next book will be.
I got a story for you.
Okay.
Alice Quinn in Comix. There you go. Gold, right there.
We'll see. But yeah, so Drawn and Quarterly they want me to re-release some of my older books. So the last couple months I've been, putting together this new edition of Ed the Happy Clown. It's going to come out in May.
That'll be cool.
Next, I've got to work on a new edition of the Playboy, and that'll come out probably next year sometime. And then after that's done, then I can get to work on my next book.
Well, it seems like you got work for now, so you got time to think about a great idea for your next one.
Yes, I have. Well, I actually, you've read Paying for It, so you know that at the end of that book, I am in the midst of an ongoing sexual relationship in quotes, or it is a relationship, but anyways, with this
it's covered in the book,
with this woman I call Denise, and I proposed to her the idea of doing a sequel to Paying for It about her experiences as a prostitute, how she got into the work, and her experiences with the various Johns, and meeting me and our relationship. And so she has been receptive to that idea. Basically she said she wants to do it. She's not sure if she has the time, but she would like to do it. So we'll see. Hopefully that will be my next book. We'll collaborate on the writing together, and I would draw it. But if it isn't that, then I've got some other ideas too. So yeah.
Awesome. It's always good to hear that great things are cooking in the oven. We're looking forward to Ed the Clown and your re-release of Playboy later on next year. Thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome, Alice.
Hi guys, this is Matt with your news for this week. From Valiant Entertainment, we've got, along with their return with XO Manowar #1, they've also announced their first exclusive artist in Carrie Nord, who's going to be doing the art for XO Manowar, of course. So that is going to come out in May, on May 2nd, actually. So check it out. There's some art for you. Good stuff. Also from Rebellion, we've got the teaser images, May 2nd as well. They are coming. I don't know what they are. There's some fancy pictures. 3 of them. We'll find out. And finally, not much this week, but from Image, Donald Glover of Community and Derek comedy fame is going to be appearing as Childish Gambino, his rapping name, in the Little Depressed Boy series. So it's going to be an interesting crossover. They're going to go to Glover's camp and have some fun. It's also promoting his album, also called Camp. So good stuff. Anyways, there's a picture. Check it out if you're interested in that. That's your news for this week. Hi guys, still Matt with your releases for this week. We got no collections, no events, nothing. Just an awesome interview. Anyways, from Boom Studios, we have Stan Lee's Soldier Zero Volume 3 trade. Check that out. And from DC, we have Batman Gotham Shall Be Judged trade. And Saga of the Swamp Thing Volume 1 trade. If you're into Alan Moore. Because who isn't, really? From IDW, we have 30 Days of Night Volume 1 trade, The Beginning of the End. And Cold War Volume 1 trade, The Damocles Contract. Fun. Finally, we have G.I. Joe Cobra Volume 2 trade, Cobra Civil War. Magical Civil War happiness. Anyways, from Image, we've got Skull Kickers Treasure Trove hardcover. Yes, awesome. Call back. Skull Kickers. We got you back, guys. And from Marvel, finally, we have Spider-Man, The Return of Anti-Venom trade. There's not much going on this week, so have fun. That's it.
So that's our show for you this week. Thank you so much for joining us. We will have our season finale next week.
Awesome.
I'm really sad, though. I mean...
Yeah, well, yeah.
So what's going to happen during the season finale is we're going to have a party here. We're going to talk to a bunch of people. We're going to talk to cartoonists. We're going to talk to fans. We're just going to have a good time. We're just going to roll with it.
Yeah,
So yeah, you should come. It's not going to be that sad. We're going to have a lot of fun. It'll be pretty sad after when we won't have a show again for a while. But during the hiatus between seasons, there will still be little clips of awesomeness that'll be uploaded to the YouTube channel, so you can continue coming back. And also after the season, we're going to start releasing the episodes as podcasts on iTunes. So tons of awesome stuff. So no need to fret. Put away your tissues. But yeah, come and join us next week in the studio, and if not, we'll see you online Friday lunchtime on YouTube, Quintessential Comics channel. Hey, you might be wondering, what? The episode just ended. Why are you back here? Well, I'm telling you the ways you can support Quintessential Comics online. If you care to, please do check out our various sites and like and or comment on these videos and or other stuff I do. Firstly, check out Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, YouTube, or the website. Thanks for your support. Love ya!